what my parents did and living were not two separate things. Dad didn't get up and go to work. We lived at work.
We had huts built that looked just like everyone else's, no running water, no electricity.
It was all to affirm their culture and their way of life, and to say that God can meet you there.
Living as a family in the village was very helpful to our ministry. I think for one thing, they had a slot to put us into that fit their slots. We were a family.
Those were not fabricated relationships for a purpose of ministry. They were genuine and authentic.
All four of us kids struggled in different ways. Ultimately, we're okay, and we're thankful for the lives that we've had.
Wherever you happen to be, whatever country you're in, it's a marvelous thing to do, to step out and just trust that, okay, this is good. Whatever happens, we'll just do our best. We would do it all over again if we could.
My name is Larry Vanderaa,
My name is Ann Vanderaa.
and we were missionaries in Africa for 44 years. Yeah, there are over 1 million Fulani in Mali, many of them nomads like these Fulani here, and all of them are dedicated Muslims. We feel that God definitely led us to be missionaries in West Africa. And it wasn't like so much that God spoke directly to us or there was a lightning bolt of some sort, but so often God seems to work through the more ordinary events in our life or through people in our life. And so I remember at the age of 7 already, when I was a young boy, my father was a pastor, and I remember agonizing over whether I should be a pastor someday or should I be a missionary someday. Well, my father kind of solved that problem, because when I was 10, just 3 years later, then he took us to Africa. He became a missionary himself, took us to Nigeria, and I spent the next 8 years of my life through high school in Nigeria.
Grew up in the Burkina Faso. My parents were there, and they homeschooled me for several years. I just grew up there, learned the language. Then they thought we needed to become more American. So we were sent down to boarding school in Nigeria, and that's where I met Larry at high school. In high school.
We came back to the States for college. We were nearing the end of our college and realized that within 3 years we could end up being pastors in a church in Iowa somewhere. And we felt too young, ill-prepared for that, and so we thought, let's do a couple years in Africa, and there was an outfit called the Christian Service Corps. So we volunteered with them, short-term missions, 2 years, and we ended up in Liberia. And at the end of those 2 years, then they asked us to return to Liberia, and one thing led to another, and eventually we stayed in Africa for 44 years.
My name is Erica, and I am the oldest. It probably wasn't until I was in older elementary or so that I really understood that we were not just living in another country, that we were there to tell people about Jesus. But even then, it's not something in the front of your mind. You're still just a kid. You're still just living your life. It's just in a different country. It might look a little different, well, a lot different, but it's just your life.
My name is Joel Vanderaa, and I'm the second oldest. Playing in the jungle, riding camels in the desert, that was normal to me. Then as I got older, I started to understand more. Some understanding of, okay, we're here to tell people about Jesus, but it was still my parents doing that, and I was just living life. Then I started to really understand, this is about people's eternal souls, and giving people the opportunity to see what life could be like with Jesus, and giving them the choice.
My name is Anna Erickson, and I am the third child. I think I grew up seeing my parents as givers, as people who really helped. That was always kind of the backdrop of our life. But so much of it was just being kids too. We just played. But as an adult now, I look back and I just am amazed, and I'm so proud of having been a part of something like that and been able to witness it.
My name is Suzanne Anderson, and I'm the youngest. What my parents did and living were not two separate things. Dad didn't get up and go to work. We lived at work with him, and so it wasn't something that could be separated. My perspective of their work, I think, changed and matured as I got older, but when I was really young, I don't think I really had a concept about it. It was just what we did. We went up to the village, we lived in huts, we ate the local food, we dressed in our panyas, and as soon as we got there, we'd flip our shoes off and go do normal life things. But there was always this undertone of we needed to integrate, we needed to be a part of the culture.
There's a history to why we chose to live the way we did in the end in Guduru in Mali. We both grew up on kind of, as kids, on sort of standard missionary compounds, which were often small acreages on the edge of a town or village.
We were kind of typical missionaries in that we lived in our own little compound, separate from the village, and then we would go in to the village. But then when we moved to Mali, my dad really wanted it to be different, because I think he recognized that doesn't really work. You don't build relationships that well. You don't build trust. And so he wanted to live like the people.
We decided we're going to live in a little village, a Fulani village. We wanted to get inside of Africa, live with Africans, get them to know them as our neighbors, as our friends, and so forth. So to do that too, we felt we needed to live as simply as we possibly could.
We had huts built that looked just like everyone else's, and no running water, no electricity. We often ate the same food that they ate, and often dressed the same way that they did.
You need to show them that they can be themselves and they can be in their culture and still love Christ and still believe in Him. They don't have to, in order to become a Christian or to believe in God, you have to leave your culture. You have to change how you dress or how you worship or anything like that. That Christ only cares that you love Him. And that's why we lived up there in the first place. That's why we lived in a village. That's why we lived in huts. That's why we spoke the language. That's why we dressed like them. It was all to affirm their culture and their way of life, and to say that God can meet you there.
I mean, I had to get used to wearing skirts. The big robes of the Fulani, it felt like I was wearing skirts for a while, and getting used to wrapping a turban and so forth. That was one thing. I remember trying to adjust to that. The Fulani have what they call pulaku, kind of a code of behavior that especially the men have to abide by. And a Fulani who has real pulaku, he's independent, he's totally in control of the emotions. In some sense, I had to maintain that, but at the same time, be gracious and in a normal American way with my wife, Ann. But the men there would often tease me. They would, after some years there, they started to realize that the way Ann and I treated each other was somewhat different than in their marriages, because they would tease me and say, "You should get a second wife." And I said, "No, I can't get a second wife." They say, "Oh, that's because you're afraid of Ann."
The women were wonderful people. They were patient with some of them had husbands that were abusive, but they never complained. It was just part of being a man. And at one time, the women were all in one of our huts, and I was standing, and they were all talking. Larry went and got a little stool and brought it. He says, "You need to." I was getting tired. He says, "You just sit down." And he went, "Ah!" That's what they said. A man brings something to his wife like that. Oh, if I could have a husband like Lottie, because he treated me with respect.
My dad was a very hard worker, very focused.
I think growing up, his work was definitely the prominent aspect of who he was.
Anything. He worked a lot more than 40 hours a week. And sometimes had to be reminded that he had a family that wanted to spend time with him. But that got better as he got older as well.
But also, he was definitely a family person as well. He never forgot us.
Every single morning, without fail, and I mean it, without fail, he would walk out before any of us were awake with his sheepskin under one arm and his big old Bible under the other arm, and he'd go out and he would spend 30, 40-hour praying.
As I lay there enjoying the quiet, I hear a soft rustling of sheets and look over to see Dad getting up and pulling on his robe. I don't say anything. I know where he is going and watch as he bends his tall body into the hut to get his goatskin rug, Bible, and notebook. Seeing him walking quickly and with purpose into the bush every morning for his time to jula, or to pray, is so ingrained in my memory that I cannot picture an early morning in Gudru without it. I remember feeling comforted by it because it gave me a sense that all was well if Dad was going to talk to God in the morning. It felt like the day would begin well if he had had his communion with the one who had sent him to such a dry and lonely place. It is interesting that the villagers, who were usually quick to greet in the morning, never approached Dad when he was going out with his goatskin rug tucked under his arm. They knew what he was about, a man of God going out to pray. It made sense in a culture where prayer was central to your belief in God.
My mom was a supporter. She worked hard. In Liberia, we were very isolated. And then as we got older, especially my two younger siblings, especially Ann and Suzanne, she did a lot of homeschooling.
She found ways for us to have joy and to enjoy those places in a very deep and meaningful, authentic way. That is really the epitome of my mom, is that positivity, that joy, that commitment to going along with my dad, but not just going along, but really putting a lot of joy and life into the work side.
My mom often talks about what a crazy life we had, she's always saying that. So I think she's proud of what they did. And a part of that is because she also believed in the work, even if at times she was harder for her.
I think one thing is the missionary life, at least our kind of missionary life, was that the kids were easily included in the work. So family life and work life kind of overlapped a lot. Because it wasn't like I or Ann went off to an office somewhere and we worked in that office and we're separated or out of the home and stuff, but the work was in the home in a sense, especially in the village. People came to us and we visited people, and we were always ate 3 meals together every day, and so there was a real interweaving of the family and the work. That made it a lot simpler. Not all missionary situations are like that, but ours was that way. The kids they weren't preaching the gospel or anything, they weren't out witnessing, but they were part of the work and part of the fabric of our work.
Erica was born in Liberia, and we had to go down to the capital city where there was a mission hospital there.
But to get to
the capital city, we had to walk, how many miles?
3 miles.
3 miles through the jungle. And
to the paved road.
Because we didn't have a car. We just had a motorcycle. And someone from the city, one of the missionaries, came all the way out. How far were it?
2 hours.
2 hours drive from the city to pick me up because I was 9 months and ready to have a baby.
Well, she was the one child of ours that was born with her eyes wide open. And they stayed open, and she was just that way. She was just kind of curious and exploring, and
she'd disappear, and the villagers would bring her back to us.
Erica was the oldest in that she always was the first to try everything.
Her being the amazing person she was always looking out for us when we followed her. So when we showed up at boarding school, she would help us adjust and get settled in and look out for us. And when we went to college, she helped me quite a lot.
Joel was just a jolly little guy.
He was very much a boy. He played with cars. He liked to build things. He liked to take things apart.
As a boy, I think he had an advantage over the girls in the way because the boys were more free to do things than the girls were.
Anna was a wild card. Anna was a lot of fun. She brought a lot of joy, a lot of laughter, a lot of energy into our family. She was the one that had the ideas to do things, to go places, to try this or that.
We're the two siblings that spent the most time in the village, and that also brought us together in a way that was very unique.
Suzanne was our youngest, and she was sort of a hidden personality in many ways.
Suzanne was not a very loud and rambunctious person, but she was always there. So she was easy to pull around and drag around and say, let's do this. She was like, okay. But Suzanne, even now, she kind of soaks in the troubles and hurts and feelings of the people around her. And I think she was much more aware of the suffering and some of the hardships of the village and even the hardships of my parents than I think the rest of us were. And I think that's impacted her as an adult as well.
Living as a family in the village was very helpful to our ministry. I think for one thing, the Fulani had a slot to put us into that fit their slots. We were a family.
Especially for my mom, she could connect the women on a parent level as mothers who worry about their children, who want the best for their children, who want better for their kids than what they have. They thought it was really odd that this little family moved out into the middle of nowhere, joined a village. And it took them a long time to understand really why we were there.
And then they also opened up opportunities for relationships with the parents of our children's friends. It just created a more normal give and take kind of situation in the village.
I think that provided for them, maybe even without them trying, a different way of connecting with the villagers.
And so I kind of wonder what sort of influence our kids had on their kids in that sense. Opening up their spirit a bit to different ideas, to different ways of looking at things, to maybe eventually as those kids grow older to look into the gospel, to explore other religious options. We don't know what the effects of that was, but we do know that as a family, I think that had a powerful impact on the village.
Those were not fabricated relationships for a purpose of ministry. They were genuine and authentic relationships. And I'm sure that did build into the authenticity of my parents being there, who were doing it more so as strategy.
When your parents are missionaries, your parents do the best that they can in the circumstances that they're in with the resources that they have. My mom and dad did that to the best of their ability. A lot of growing up overseas was really hard.
Having a strong family bond, family unit, really helped us get through those. It kind of felt like home wasn't necessarily about a place. It was about the family unit. And so wherever family was, that was kind of home. That was kind of the safe, stable bubble that we could be in as we went through life.
I think in their lives, especially in Mali, it was easy to see what my dad's role was. Especially in a Muslim society, women really have no value. He could go out and do these things with men, but the women had work. They had things to take care of. and a woman couldn't make necessarily independent decisions from their spouse. And my mom had us kids to take care of. She had many years of homeschooling, and that was not easy to do out in the middle of nowhere. And then once us kids were going into boarding school and then eventually college, she didn't have as many of us to take care of or to teach. And then when Suzanne started boarding school, I had more free time to spend with the women in the village. So in a sense that helped. But the village was hard. The village was a hard place to live. It's a very hard place to live. And it was harder for my mom than for my dad.
I think there were times when my dad was a little more driven than my mom, and that was hard then for my mom to try to keep up with that, because my dad is very like, this is the work, this is the calling, this is what needs to be done. And I think sometimes he wasn't always aware of how difficult it was for my mom. And then my mom, of course, had her shop, and once she had that really hyper-focused what she did up there.
In 1991, I opened one of our rooms. It was Joel's old bedroom, but he was in college now. His bedroom became my shop, and people would bring things from the north, from our Fulani, but also people started bringing. The Bambara people started bringing some of their things. And I said, sure, I'll sell it for you too. And all the money went out back. I didn't keep anything. I mean, I didn't need anything. But it was a wonderful thing because you met a lot of people.
But she started buying items from women in our village, like round mats. They make these beautiful round mats that take hours and hours and hours to make. And they decorate their homes with these long rectangular mats where they sew together all these reeds with colorful home dyed leather with intricate designs. And so she started buying some of these items and then selling them along with her jewelry. And then eventually, over time, she ended up with this whole shop in the city. Half our house was emptied of furniture, and she just had every room full of cloth and woodworking and things from the various villages. And so she helped a lot of people who otherwise would not have been able to make money. So her shop was it was her thing.
Her shop was really a way for my mom to take her biggest qualities of who she is, and that shop really was a celebration of that because it was all of her skills. It was the perfect job for her.
It gave her a lot of direction, I think, and purpose, and something to do once all of us kids were gone as well, especially in the city.
In the village, Ann was known as Lare's wife, but in Bamako, I was known as Ann's husband.
I don't know. I think what happened is people kept saying, oh, don't you have a few? I would like to buy some of these. They're so nice. No, it was really marvelous. And it was all kinds of Europeans came and French. And
people would come into the shop to buy something, but I feel like they left with more than what they bought because they would talk with her and she would listen. And people would come in. I don't know how often I'd go in there and people would just share their life story with my mom. Really a setting for her to really shine in all of the great qualities that she has as an artist and as a people person and someone who really just truly wanted to love God through the people that she met.
I think one of the most memorable memories as a family was the evenings in the village. And every evening we would pull our mats outside and we would eat Fulani food together, and we'd eat in the Fulani fashion. Even as a family, we'd eat with our hands out of a common bowl, sharing the chicken and so forth that we had. And we would be under the stars.
Being out in the kind of desert, and it was very flat. Trees and bushes tended to be small. There's no electricity, so there's no light pollution.
When night fell, it was black. And if it was a no moon night, the sky was just so full of stars that you feel like there's less black space than even stars.
anytime I would walk out of our hut at night, I just couldn't help but look up at these stars, and then laying in bed at night, looking up, I could almost feel myself kind of being drawn up into the stars.
I think a lot of it was the sounds. When I think of the evening in Guduru, it's the quiet evening sounds of the cows coming in, and the sheep and the donkeys are braying, and there's horses around. And
We would then sometimes read books together, like we read through the Narnia series. We sang together, and I don't know what our villagers thought about our family singing, because we were right there. I'm sure most of the village could hear us singing our songs, harmonizing, and so forth.
And so those evenings were kind of sacred. And the villagers eventually just kind of learned that was our time.
Really a bonding time for our family, and a safe kind of place for us to rest and catch our breath.
My parents worked hard, and they were very immersed, 100% immersed into their work. But when they stopped work, it was family time. We would go every Sunday to the airstrip. Dad would pack up his work. We would all jump into the truck and go to the airstrip and play some softball, make a fire, and roast marshmallows. My dad would hit golf balls.
I think that was his time to just kind of ponder. My dad talks out loud to himself a lot, and so we always just kind of left him alone when he was hitting his golf balls, because you could hear him going, he's just sitting there talking to himself and probably processing whatever it is he needed to process.
We would go out there, and it would be windy, and the wind's whipping up, and it might be like 105 degrees. And my mom would set up her little chair and have her little thermos of coffee, and she would burrow herself under her black blanket to try to keep the sand away and get her cup of coffee, and she would just smile and watch us go play games. And I have a picture of her in every workplace that I go, because I'm like, she just loved watching us kids have fun.
It was just a nice escape from the constant busyness in the village and constant people coming and going. Here was a chance for us to go out and just be us as a family and kind of catch our breath.
Growing up, we wouldn't just stay in Africa and Liberia or Mali just for years on end. We would be there for 2.5, 3 years-ish, and then we would come back here for about 6 months, and at the time it was called a furlough.
For us kids, it was like this gigantic change, adventure. It was like we were going to see cousins, and we were going to see grandparents, and we were going to have Dairy Queen, and we were going to have cold cereal and Little Debbie's. Those were just like, what? It was amazing.
Coming back to the States was often exciting, because we were leaving a poor third world country and coming back to the States, and lots of new things to see, and just wow, everything was so nice.
I would have to be gone on the weekends to speak in churches. That's when the kids were out of school. Monday morning, I'd come back from my weekend speaking, and then the kids would go off to school. And so it was sort of a conflicted time, a good time, but not always a real easy time on furloughs.
Everybody said that anybody could do the important thing somebody should do. Everybody knows that anybody could do all the good things that nobody did.
When I came back for college, we'd spent the previous 3 years or so as a family starting to sing more and more.
One furlough, we thought, instead of me just going out and speaking, why not have our whole family go, and we'll put on a little program, and each of the kids gave a little testimony, a little piece about their life in Africa.
Do all the good things that nobody did.
Historically, when a family would get up, missionary family would get up in front and, sing a little song for the congregation. It'd be, a little African song or something simple like that. So we would often, with our first song, start out in unison, and then we would break into harmony. It was really fun to watch that and just go, wow, they can actually sing.
When I think of Furloughs, I think of the cabin. The cabin was, in many ways, an island for us.
Something we wanted to do as soon as we could when we got back to the States. You could just feel the excitement in the car as we go. We were 4-lane Highway 10, and then eventually down to 2-lane 71, and the roads kept getting progressively smaller. And every transition, we get a little more excited because we're a little closer.
No matter what the weather, the windows had to come down and you had to hear the trees and the wind. And you can just feel the excitement in the car as we're getting closer and we're going up and over the familiar turns and twists of the road and the sound of the gravel under the tires.
We would all kind of just breathe a sigh of relief, like, oh, this is home.
At some point, we were beginning to realize that our kids didn't know where they were from in the States.
I'm from the States right now. My grandparents are in Big Lake, but I grew up in Africa. You know, it's like I didn't know where I was from.
They'd saved up money for years and years, and we were able to scrape up enough to buy a small, simple cabin. So that first year, we just kind of crammed in there and slept in closets and wherever there was space. But it was our place, and we were excited about that.
But from that point on, every time we came back to the States, we would spend our first month here at the cabin in July. Just no mission work, no visiting churches, just hanging out at the cabin, swimming, biking. My dad would work on the cabin, expanding it, building onto it, and it just became our place. And we always knew every year that we would go back there.
It stayed the same. You know, I could hang a drawing or whatever on the fridge, and we'd go back to Africa, come back 3 years later, and it was still there.
It looked the same, it felt the same, it smelled the same, and everything we did was the same. We swam at 3 o'clock, you know, we watched Star Trek at 9 o'clock in the evening. We fished, we played in the yard. It was just this sort of like, yeah, it was a place that stayed the same.
Yeah. Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom.
Hi. You might hit the camera.
There's a different feeling there. We can get together here around the table, around our dining room table in this house, and we have a good time. But when we all go to the cabin, it's different. There gets to be a togetherness that's just different from when we're here, and it begins at 8 o'clock in the morning and it runs all the way to midnight, and so we could come on furloughs and escape to the lakes and the woods and the greenery, and so I think the cabin played a very important part for us too, as rejuvenating our spirits to return again.
When all of us reached 7th grade, we transitioned from being homeschoolers to going to boarding school. The boarding school was in the next country over called Côte d'Ivoire, or Ivory Coast, and it was a missionary school for other kids like us who have parents that work in various places that don't have schools.
Yeah, I'll never forget when we first sent Erica to boarding school back in 1986 in August, and yeah, that was not a real simple or easy thing.
That was very hard. It was very hard to be separated.
There were a lot of hard things about being sent to boarding school. It also would have been worse to not go with our isolation in the village. I had a very good experience there. I had good dorm parents, I had good friends, played sports, did a lot of really fun stuff. I remember the first night after when my mom was going to be leaving, because she brought me, and I remember crying a lot. one night laying in bed, just really homesick. And I'm 12 years old. And just really sad and crying, and I couldn't go to sleep, and I couldn't settle down. And I remember just praying, and crying out to God, like, I'm just so sad, I can't sleep, and I miss my family, and my little brother and sisters, and I just remember this feeling like this physical sort of calm wash over me. And it was like, Jesus was there, I'm here with you. And I remember I just had this peace, and I was able to sleep. And that was a very important point in my very young faith at that age, realizing that God even cared about little old 12-year-old me.
Once I went to boarding school, that changed things a lot. I really fairly quickly became more comfortable at boarding school than in the village. I began to feel more like a visitor in the village. And I remember quite distinctly, sitting in the back of the pickup, watching the village slowly fade away in the distance and thinking, realizing that this was the end, that this was a major transition and a part of my life was done. And that turned out to be quite true, that it was never quite the same. I mean, when I came back, it wasn't quite the same.
As I was preparing to make decisions like whether I wanted to do basketball or volleyball, do I want to live with 2 roommates or 1 roommate? Meanwhile, I'm sitting next to my friends as they're processing, I hope I have a kind husband. They didn't really have a whole lot of control in their future. Those friendships were really real, and it was a really, really hard transition. I knew when I left for boarding school that I was going to come back different. And watching my friends, the light out of their eyes slowly go out as their hopes were not realized.
College was a different story altogether. That took a long time for me to adjust to being in the States again. For quite a few years, I just wanted to get through college, and I was going to get back to Africa as fast as I could.
Coming back to the States for college was really scary because I knew my parents would be leaving after a few months. And I actually don't remember them leaving. That memory is blocked out of my mind.
When we left her behind for college here in the States.
I cry.
And I get a little broken up about that every time I think of it. But I still remember going down the chute to the plane and looking back and seeing her just sobbing in the arms of my sister Luann. And I got to my seat in the plane. I thought, this isn't worth it. We just got to get off this plane. And this is too difficult. But after a bit, we settled down and got ourselves in order, and we flew back to Mali. But that was one of the more difficult experiences, I think, in terms of separating from our children.
I really struggled my first 3 years here. I was depressed a lot. I missed my family. I was angry with God for making them be missionaries, for making them live a life that meant that we were apart so much. And it took a while for me to work through that. And eventually, I came to be really thankful for the life that I had.
From a ministry point of view, it was kind of challenging to weigh all that, and we'd have these little short slices of our life
But our kids are
by
the most
visiting our
important
kids,
thing,
but
you
we
know?
always felt that our kids were the most important, that we needed to give that top priority. There was always trying to balance the needs and the urgency of ministry and the needs of our children. And I hope we did that fairly well most of the time, but I'm sure sometimes,
Sure, there's some hurt there.
I'm sure there's some, yeah.
Becoming an adult, becoming a parent, I could better appreciate the choices they had to make, and also be really thankful for the rich history that my life gave me. I know there was a lot that they went through that we probably didn't see. There were some things that I remember my mom talking about later when I was an adult that as a kid or teenager I just wasn't aware of.
For our first 10 years, we did not have any believers that we knew of. And all of this was in the Muslim context where anybody who was seeking about Jesus would have to come secretly and cautiously, and
At nighttime.
no one would want to be accused of wanting to become a Christian. And so this went on for 10 years, and it just seemed like nothing was happening.
We
And
weren't ready to give
we
up.
were getting a little bit discouraged finally, and you begin to think, are we doing something wrong here? Are we just not being aggressive enough? Should we do something differently?
I remember seeing my dad weep once about it, about just nothing happening. Like, what are we doing? Are we doing it right?
Talking out with my mom, hours of just trying to understand what they were doing wrong and what they needed to do more of, and constantly supporting each other, constantly working things out with each other, always a support.
And so at year 10, we decided to ask the villagers if we could give some public presentations of just to talk about Jesus, what's in the New Testament.
Permission.
And they agreed for me to do that. And so for 3 days I did that, and I would give this presentation. And each of those 3 days there was getting to be more and more people were coming to these presentations. Other villagers started asking them, what is going on in Guduru? Are you all becoming Christians over there? And this made many of the villagers, and especially the head Marabu of our village, who's a Muslim religious teacher, very nervous. And so he called all the men together that evening in the mosque, and he forbade them from going to any more of my presentations. I was going to have another one on Friday afternoon. Then for 3 days after that, we were shunned, the classic shunning, where no one came to greet, no one came to visit, no one dared talk to us. And we were very, very discouraged after
We didn't
that,
see
and
anybody for a while.
really didn't know what direction we were going to go in. And we even started to seriously explore what we would do if we would return to the States and just retire from missionary work. But then Kumba became a believer about that time. So you want to tell the story of Kumba?
Yeah.
I would like to introduce to you one of our family of believers from our village in Gudru, way up in the north. And this is Kumba, my very good friend Kumba, and her daughters, Tako and
Kumba was a remarkable woman in that she was a strong woman in herself, and she didn't let men diminish her, or she would still talk. She would talk back, which is very rare for a woman to talk back to a man. And anyway, but at that time, men still were dominant, of course, over their women.
So she had become friends with my mom a little bit and knew why they were there. She knew they were there to tell people about Jesus, and she knew that my mom prayed to God. And so she came to my mom and said, we need to pray. We need to pray because my husband is going to divorce me and take my children.
So she didn't have any of the children. Her children left with her. And she was, of course, as a mother, brokenhearted. She says, my children were taken away. And what am I going to do? How do I get my children back? She says, I've had 5,000 francs. I'm going to go to our Marabu, and I'm going to ask him if he can have, maybe can have power enough that maybe I can get my children back. And I said, Kumba, I said, yeah, why don't you let me pray with her in Jesus' name, about Jesus, in Jesus' name, and pray that maybe your children come back. She said, well, I'll give you the 5,000 francs. And I said, no, I'm not looking for money. I said, why don't we just pray? Let's come every day. You come to my hut. I personally was not positive that she'd get her kids back. It was about 1 year. We did this for quite a long time in the village. And all of a sudden, one day she came rushing into my hut, where I was, the woman's hut. And she says, Anna, the prayers have answered. I have all my children back. And she just became a very strong believer, and all her children became believers. They would sing songs about Jesus. It was amazing. She had strength because the village really got angry about that. Here's a woman, going on her own way, religiously in a very Muslim town.
Haya, mi yi arande mo hula, joni mi hulata jinnar, mi hulata seytane, mi hulata fi batte, timi mi julari, mi horari, yimbe guduru. And
so she would want to go out and just tell everyone about Jesus, what Jesus did for me. But then she would be persecuted for it. And the women would not let their children play with her children, or she'd be turned away from the village well. But she kind of just couldn't help herself.
But it took another 8 years before she was baptized. That was the beginning of her faith, a very simple faith, just in answer to prayer. She saw there's something in this Jesus. And then little by little, Ann, working with her over the years and reading the Bible, increasingly she became a more and more open believer. We tried to tamp her down a little bit, but she just was very open, but as a result had to deal with a fair bit of harassment. And
Kumba now is just going to greet all of you in the name of Jesus. All right, we go to debate in the Eastern. Sakiraɓe America mi jewtinon dow inde Isa almasihu min sukaɓe am fof muɗon ɗo joni minen woni gonɗiɓe ɓe Isa jokkuɓe Isa min woni ɓiɓɓe laamɗo ceniɗo o gaɗnon min duwa muɗon ga enne muɗon nampala onon sakiraɓe amen en fof en nokku goto en fof en babiraɗo goto to inde Isa almasihu gattunon min hakkille fof en fof en ɓerɗe.
And then all of her children became believers. Some of their children now have also. So through Kumba, this whole family is a family of believers. And they will often call my mom and sing. I don't know why that's hitting me. I've heard the songs and they're just really joyful in the midst of really hard lives.
There were for sure times when I struggled with doubt about who God was and my own faith, and do I really want to keep going with this? Is it worth it? But one of the things that often pulled me back was looking at my parents' faith and seeing how much they had sacrificed and given up for their faith and to share their faith with others. So if this faith is so important to them that they're willing to do all that, then it must be worth hanging on to and keeping.
They never stopped, even if they had doubts, they never really stopped believing in what they were doing and why they were there and the importance of bringing Christ to these people. And it wasn't just about bringing Christ, it was about making their lives better. And I think their faith in that translated to us. It kind of trickled down to the rest of us kids, and how we viewed God and the importance of doing what God says, and that it's not just about going to church and being a Christian. It's about having God fill everything that you do and how you treat other people and how you live this life.
I feel like my parents were so invested so deeply into their work that we were able to take it because they had the passion, and it's contagious. And it didn't come with us having to also have sacrifice and challenges along the way and to struggle. But I think when it comes right down to it, we were bought into it because they were also so committed to it.
If we could just be young again, we'd go back again. wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was worth it. Yeah, we've never doubted that, really. The only thing is we wish sometimes that we knew then what we know now. We learned a lot along the way of how to reach out to Muslims, and we wish we had known it at the beginning. We probably would have approached some things a little bit differently, but overall, it was a great life, a full life, and I think if we had a choice, we'd just repeat it again.
All 4 of us kids struggled in different ways and for different reasons throughout our years in Africa and then also here. Ultimately, we're okay. And we're thankful for the lives that we've had. And the lives that we had influenced the lives we have now.
I look at my whole span of my childhood and I have to put both my hands out. And I look at the amazing togetherness and the experience, and I love everyone so much. I love the experience that I had. It is unique and it is rich and meaningful. And yes, there was sacrifice and a lot of deep challenges. But those two things can't exist separately. They're all one piece together, and that is the unity of our families. We went through that together, each differently. It was hard, and it was beautiful. It is what it was, and it's not something I would trade for any other life.
I feel very close to my family members. I think because of it, we only had each other, and I'm really thankful for that.
Sacrifice and having hard times are, well, hard, but at the same time, they can lead to a full and very rewarding life. Don't be afraid to make sacrifices. Even though it may seem hard, it's usually worth it in the end. As long as your family's relationship and your family bond is strong, you can weather a lot.
It's an adventure. Don't ever be afraid to just go someplace, even though it's the farthest place in the world. Like we were up on the edge of in the Sahara Desert, you know. It turned out to be a wonderful thing to happen. Wherever you happen to be, whatever country you're in, you know, it's a marvelous thing to do, to step out and you just trust that, okay, this is gonna, whatever happens, we'll just do our best, you know. We would do it all over again if we could. Yeah.
That's the legacy that my parents leave, is that you can live a life of meaning and you can be a giver and you can make the world a better place if you stick with it and if you believe in it. And you can also find joy in it. This, even when it's difficult, and that you find joy in sometimes the oddest places and the oddest times, like hitting golf balls in an airstrip and, you know, reading books under the stars and riding donkeys in the moonlight, you know, and those singing around the mat in the evening. Those are all those times you find joy within a life of meaning. And so I think my parents were an amazing example of what it means to do that.